Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Israel. This is Parashat Noach, Noah. Genesis 6:9 to 11:32. This one's called World Maker, World Breaker. Yeah, we're doing this. If we only had a clue of the times that we live in, if we had any idea of the things that we were actually doing right now, if we knew, would any of it change? Was it really necessary for God to wipe out all life back then and start anew? Well, we know the answer is yes, because obviously it happened and God doesn't do anything wrong or without a purpose. But let us never forget what King Solomon said. What has been is what will be. And what has been done is what will be done. And there's nothing new under the sun. And yet, nobody listens, because nobody wants to believe that something like that could possibly happen again. Maybe we go less back than King Solomon. Okay, let's go back to the 19th century philosopher, George Santayana, right? We all know the quote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Now, people love quoting this, especially when it comes to the eventual rise of socialism in their country and how it pretty much destroys everything in its path. But it's not necessarily socialism itself that is wicked, right? But rather those who are pulling the strings at the top. It's like saying that guns are evil. Do guns shoot themselves? Evil and wickedness, that all comes from people. Those who cannot remember the past. What are we? As Israel, what are we? We have been commanded to remember what? We have 6 things that we have been commanded to remember. The first one is the Exodus from Egypt, right? Deuteronomy 16:3, remember the day when you left Egypt, all the days of your life. That's why everything is Zecher Letziat Mitzrayim. 2, receiving the Torah at Sinai. Be careful and guard yourself so that you do not forget the things that your eyes have seen, so that they will not leave your hearts all the days of your life. Teach them to your children and to your children's children, the day you stood before Hashem your God in Horeb, on Mount Sinai. Deuteronomy 4:9 and 10. What else do we have to remember and never forget? Amalek, that's right. Remember what Amalek did to you on the journey when you left Egypt. They met you on the way and ambushed those who were lagging behind. You were tired and exhausted, but they did not fear God. Is anybody else here tired and exhausted? Heads up. Therefore, when Hashem your God relieves you from your enemies in the land that he will give you to possess, you must erase the memory of Amalek from beneath heaven. Do not forget. Deuteronomy 25:17-19. What else should we never forget? What's a serious stain on our record? Golden calf, right? Remember and do not forget how you angered Hashem your God in the desert. Deuteronomy 9:7. Yep. What else? Miriam's punishment. Remember what Hashem your God did to Miriam on the journey when you left Egypt. Deuteronomy 24:9. Why do we have to remember that? Because that's Lashon Hara. And Miriam was one of the highest, greatest tzaddikim to have ever lived. Tzaddikot, rather. And still, even she could get struck with leprosy because of evil speech. And of course, Shabbat 6. Remember Shabbat and make it holy. Zechot Yom HaShabbat LeKodsho. Exodus 20 verse 8. Are we commanded to remember the flood? What sign did we get in remembrance? We got the rainbow, right? So let's read chapter 9, 15, and 16, right? Chapter 9, verse 15 and 16. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and between you and between every living creature among all flesh, and the water will no longer become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and this is God saying this, I will see it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and between every living creature among all flesh, which is on the earth. The rainbow is not for us to remember, but for God to remember, or for us to at least remember that this is a reminder for God, reminder. And so, if this is the case, what if we commit the same kinds of sins as before, but now we know that God will never destroy the earth again? Oh, okay, we'll just do the same thing. God's never going to destroy the earth again like that because rainbow time, right? Yeah, so he will remember that because of the rainbow. So if the rainbow is the only thing that's keeping God from flooding the earth, so then the question can be, what if there's no rainbow to remind God not to flood the earth again? Furthermore, in today's day and age, what does the rainbow represent? It might be the last thing to represent God in the world today, or any other kind of reminder of what happened and why. Where does all this come from? What is the origin of the current rainbow abomination? Genesis 6:2. That the sons of God saw the daughters of man when they were beautifying themselves, and they took for themselves wives from whomever they chose. I'm going to bring forth what the Zohar says on the matter. As we were speaking of the Nephilim, the fallen ones. We've touched on this before, but here's the point of origin. I'll show you how everything kind of developed from there. So these Nephilim, the fallen, are Azza and Azael. As we've learned, they were called the fallen because God dropped them from heaven and they could not return. As we see throughout the Torah that angels can shapeshift and take on the form of human beings once they enter our atmosphere, right? Same thing we're going to see in a few weeks' time in Abraham, right? In Vaera. But not only that, they can shapeshift into anything. Also beasts and whatnot, animals, birds. It could be a dog barking at you in the street. It could be the crow that landed on your balcony, on your porch, or it could be a cat just, staring at you in the street. They could be your mailman or mail woman, your best friend, a family member. They can shapeshift into anyone and into anything. And so these two, Azza and Azael, remained on the earth with all their supernatural abilities still intact. They just can't go back up. Subsequently, they were seduced by earthly women, the daughters of men. They exist to this day, teaching sorcery to people. Now, we studied this in, in Parashat Balak, right? This is where Bilam got his info from. All his incantations and his sorcery, he taught it to his kids, Yanis and Yambres, who fooled Aaron. Lavan, his father, learned from them as well. So, they still do this. And guess what? They're still walking around today. In fact, again, look at the world, see who pulls the strings, understand where everything is going. You'll see the bigger picture. Now, they begot sons, right, who were called giants or mighty. This is not my opinion. This is the Zohar. Go ahead. I dare anybody to contest. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, meaning before and after the flood, when the sons of God would come into the daughters of man and they would bear for them. They are the mighty men. They would bear for them sons. They are the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown, right? Ve'ildu lahem hema hagiborim, giborim, mighty, also in stature. Asher me'olam anshe Hashem. Now, anshe Hashem are men of renown, as in men who made themselves known, gave a name for themselves, as in those who run things. These are the elites, as the Zohar states. This is nothing new. Until this very day, these fallen angels could have easily taken on different forms, performed witchcraft, deceived some of the children of Israel, also, coming as angels or whatnot, divine beings, and still mating with the daughters of men. Who knows what kind of other troubles they could cause, especially deceiving some of the children of Israel, but definitely most of the world, to turn them away from the one thing that can actually set a course correction, and that is the law of God, right? And again, it's all a matter of perception, just like we discussed last week. The Torah is your ground zero always. It is your default. It is your life. This is what you cling on to. You and the world are constantly being tested all the time, every day, every moment of every day. So no matter how appealing something seems, no matter how appealing it may look and sound, no matter the promises given, oh, I'll grant you everlasting life. If it goes against the Torah, which is absolute truth, then by default it's a lie. Don't you see? It's laid out right there for you. And if it's a lie, then we are speaking of the tree of death. If anybody missed last week's teaching, you have to. That's the poison that comes in the most beautiful and appealing of packaging, tailor-made just for you. Your poison is not my poison. You understand? It depends on who the eye of the beholder. How can it be wrong if it feels so right? How can it be evil if it feels so good? Notice the lie right there? That's the word feel, which has nothing to do with truth. And so from the deception of Eve, the earth continued its ways based on looking and feeling good. As a result of people just living the way they wanted to, Genesis 6:5, and the Lord saw that the evil of man was great in the earth, and every imagination of his heart was only evil all the time. V'chol yetzer machshavot libo rak ra kol hayom. Wow, okay. So what's only evil all the time? What does that mean? Surely that can't possibly be evil all the time, could it? So what does God say of these wicked or evil ways? Because there is a difference. We'll learn them in Hebrew. Psalms 5. Ki lo el chafetz rasha ata lo yigurecha ra. We have rasha and we have ra. Psalms 5 verse 5. For you are not a God who desires wickedness. Evil does not abide within you. So the English here changes them. Confused people shall not stand before your eyes. You hate all workers of iniquity. Confused people, as in a person who can't tell the difference between what is obviously truth and what is a lie. You're not going to stand before God. Why? Because guess what? Those confused people, by default, are workers of iniquity. Are you confused? You destroy speakers of lies. Thank you. The Lord abhors a man of blood and deceit. It's very simple here. There is no such thing as limbo. There is only truth or lies. That's it. If you mix the two even a little bit, then you are on the side of lies. Rabbi Yehuda said, "He who cleaves to and is led by the evil inclination is defiled and will be led further into defilement." Now remember, the evil inclination makes everything look good. And even if it's bad, your mind will come up with excuses to twist everything. And it's going to seem so comfortable and so convenient. And how does that play out in our day-to-day? Yeah, it's excuses, excuses, excuses. The Zohar continues. Rabba ra'at ha'adam ba'aretz. Okay, from the verse. The evil of men was great upon the earth. Because men committed all sorts of sins, and their guilt was complete when they spilled blood in vain upon the ground. Is there such a thing as spilling blood not in vain? This refers to those who pollute their ways upon the earth, meaning they spill their seed. And so it is written, Rak ra kol hayom, only evil all day. All day. And how do we know that Ra specifically speaks of spilling seed, although it refers to blood? Genesis 38. Now Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Vayhi bechol Yehuda ra be'enei Hashem ve'amiteu Hashem. So Judah said to Onan, come to your brother's wife and perform the rite of the Levirate and raise up a progeny for your brother. Now Onan knew that the progeny would not be his, and it came about when he came to his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground in order not to give his seed to his brother. Now, what he did was evil in the eyes of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Vayera ra be'enei Hashem asher asa vayamet gam oto. They did the same thing, and this is called ra. Okay. The life is in the blood, therefore the seed itself is life, and the spilling of the seed is equal to that of spilling of the blood, aka murder. So thou shalt not kill, same category. Now, there is a difference between ra, evil, we'll go with that translation, and rasha, wicked. Anyone who is a ra is also a rasha, but not everyone who is a rasha is a ra. Ra is a very specific spirit of defilement. This is the name of the spirit of defilement that is exclusive to this type of sin, the spilling of the seed. Or again, it's not only the spilling of the seed, we're talking about premarital relations and any kind of sexual activity outside of kosher, marital sex. That is the spirit of ra, the spirit of defilement. About a person who is ra, a person who does this. This is what it says about them. Such a person will not enter the palace of the Lord, nor gaze upon the face of the Shekhinah, because his sin causes the Shekhinah to depart from the world. In other words, you think you're doing what you're doing privately alone even. I'm not harming anyone, but you're actually harming the entire world. From where do we know that the Shekhinah leaves because of this sin? We know this from Jacob. From when the Shekhinah left him, remember when it left him after it took Joseph, right? He concluded that there was a defect in his sons. And indeed there was. They were not behaving like the sons of Jacob, right? Joseph came and he told on them, he said, listen, they're doing some of these, not all of them, but some of them were doing these things, right? This is in the early years. But after Joseph was taken, obviously they did a complete shuvah. They turned themselves around completely. They all, reclaimed their tzaddikim status. Nevertheless, we gather from this that we ourselves may not even be the ones who sinned in this manner. Nevertheless, the removal of the Shekhinah from the world affects us all. And when the Shekhinah is weakened, just try and imagine this to today. When the Shekhinah is weakened, it gives room and strength for the spirit of defilement to cover the world. When a person is defiled by this sin, it says he is not remembered by the Holy One for merit. This is very important. Listen to me. He is not remembered by the Holy One for merit, but constantly by the spirit of defilement called Ra. Meaning, no matter what you do, you can keep Shabbat, you can keep kosher, you can give tzedakah, you could put on tefillin, whatever. If you possess the spirit of Ra, it cancels everything. Everything, because that's all you are remembered, because you're not only harming yourself, you're harming the world. Now, I know all this is very difficult, believe me. I don't speak of this lightly at all. In fact, this is a tikkun that I've had to make myself, all right? The life I used to live, the excuses I used to make. Well, I know it's wrong, but I do the other stuff. Maybe it's okay. It's just, and it's a snowball effect. No. That's why, in a sense, for me to teach about it and putting it out there is a form of rectification as well. I'm no different than any of you. I get it, okay? But true tshuva means to completely stop doing this. That's tshuva. It's not, it's really, no, stop doing it. Otherwise, that's not tshuva at all. Not 99%, not 99.9%. 100% stop. And then turn and then walk in the opposite direction. Oh, and by the way, I speak to everyone here, women as well, all right? If you participate in this, if you are the cause of this, meaning you cause a man to spill his seed or engage in sexual activities with anyone but your husband in a kosher manner, then you carry the same guilt and responsibility. You too fall under the category of Ra. Okay, and therefore, as much as you are trying to get close to God, you must know, as a matter of fact, that the Shekhinah is not with you, but the spirit of defilement. Just know this, and therefore, whatever you do, until you stop that, you're just making it worse. The more we learn about things, the better understanding we get regarding the gravity of our actions, okay? Because again, I always knew that this was bad. We know what is right and what is wrong, but again, we move that standard, we move that line. That's where the tree of knowledge of good and evil comes into. Well, I mean, there it is. Is it good or bad? Is it right or wrong? Is it truth or lies? That's what it has to come down to. True or false? What does the Torah say? Did God not say that you should, or no? Truth and lies. That's it. That's what it comes down to. That's emet. Okay. Now this is the very reason and source of the destruction of the world. And, by the way, later on the temple. Genesis 6:6. And the Lord regretted that he had made man upon the earth, and he became grieved in his heart. Vaynachem Hashem ki asa et ha'adam ba'aretz vayityatzeb el libo. Of this verse, Rabbi Yossi quotes Isaiah 5:18. Hoi moshchei ha'avon bechavlei hashav v'cha'avot ha'agala chata'a. Woe to those who draw the iniquity with ropes of nothingness, and like cart ropes is the sin. And here are your excuses. These are those who draw iniquity like water from a well. This is what this sin is like. Who sin every day before the Holy One, blessed be He, and they regard their sins as worthless cord or rope because they think that the actions that they engage in and their iniquities are of no consequence. I'm here to teach the consequence, to try and teach the consequence. Because maybe if we learn the consequence, right, not to steal or get caught stealing because you might go to prison. But then you got what are those scared straight? They take some, juvenile delinquents and they put them in a day in prison and see how they fare. Get them scared straight. So the world was destroyed because of what is happening today freely. Maybe, hopefully it'll sink in. Any one of us can make a difference. This is what I'm trying to say. They thus transform all their sins, those who make excuses, right? Because they think that the actions they engage in and their iniquities are of no consequence. They thus transform all their sins, not just that one, all their sins into one big powerful sin, as the cart rope, which are strong and cannot be broken. The regret that God expresses in the verse is the fact that he has to punish his creation, but not before giving ample warning. After warning, after another warning. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you dead. Even the wicked Egyptians, who were all drowned by the water. When his children Israel crossed the Red Sea, the angels were singing. Everybody was happy. And yet God was grieving because, wicked or not, they made their choices. He didn't want to kill them. He also created the Egyptians. They had 3 opportunities to repent. 3. What did they have? It was blood, it was the frogs, and it was lice. The first 3 commands, not 10, because after the 3rd command, Pharaoh's like, Like God's like, okay, you're done. That was your 3rd strike. Now, by the 3rd time, he ignored the clear warning signs. So it was too late. Their fate had already been sealed. They had forfeited their lives at that point, and their very public destruction and humiliation was going to glorify God. So that was it. 1, 2, 3. Now this sin is what causes the foundations of the world to crumble, i.e. Yesod, right? This is a world breaker. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, who I created. I made him, I could take him out. Who I created from upon the face of the earth. This is God also taking responsibility. From man to cattle to creeping thing to the fowl of the heavens, for I regret that I made them. Ki nachamti ki asitam. It's not, again, that he regretted that he made them. He regrets that he has to take them out. God doesn't really have those kind of regrets. Now, it may seem like God was angry or even took vengeance upon man, but this is not the case. God will only take vengeance upon the nations at the end of days of how they treated his children Israel over the centuries. That's God's vengeance. But our sages quote Isaiah 55, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways." How does this manifest? When a man wants to take revenge, listen, here's our sages, brilliant. When a man wants to take revenge on a person, he doesn't tell that person, "Listen, man, I'm coming to get you," right? Let alone his entire plan of how he's going to do it, unless he's like a Bond villain, right? Now, if God truly wanted to wipe out man, he would have just done it. No warning. End of story. But after all the warnings, no one can come to God and say, "What'd you do that for? Why didn't you warn us?" To which God could rightfully and justifully reply, "Excuse me, what part of flooding the earth don't you understand?" This is where Noah comes in, right? And so there is judgment. And since this is judgment and not vengeance, there is always mercy within it. In fact, you can ask, why water and not fire? Water cleanses. Water is mercy. Too much water, boiling hot water, that's judgment within mercy. That's a tool of mercy, judgment. Anyway, we'll explain. And here it comes. We're going to go back to the generations of Adam. Genesis 5, verse 29. Well, by the way, he also took out Bnei Israel. The whole Exodus, it was with my right hand. Right hand is mercy. Okay? He protected them. It was for the good of the world, actually. Anyway, Genesis 5:29. And he named him Noah. This is going back to the generations of Adam. He named him Noah, saying, "This one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, from the ground which the Lord has cursed." ויקרא את שמו נוח לאמור זה ינחמנו ממעשינו ומצבון ידינו מן האדמה אשר עררה השם. Now, if you read the names of the generations, it never says he named him. It doesn't say, and he begot this, and he named him this. When it comes to naming sons, until now, it was only Noach. Ze yenachamenu. This one will comfort us. How did they know that Noah was going to comfort them? Furthermore, who named him? It wasn't his dad. When God cursed the earth, Genesis 3:17, right? You shall not, which I commanded you, saying you shall not eat of it. Cursed be the ground for your sake. Arura ha'adama ba'avrucha. And here it says, ha'adama asher arera Hashem. Okay, so that's where it says. This Noach is going to give them rest from what God did. Now, he was speaking of Adam over here. When Adam heard this back in Genesis 3:17, when God cursed Adam and the ground, basically. When Adam heard this, he turned to God and said, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, until when will the world be subject to this curse? And the Holy One, blessed be he, replied and said, until you beget a son who is born circumcised like you. Remember, Adam was the pinnacle of perfection. He was crafted by the hands of God in his own image. He was the most perfect creature to have ever been created. Okay? And he was created circumcised. So God told Adam, when you beget a son that is born circumcised like you. Okay. And so for 10 generations, they waited, and finally a son was born, and they saw that he was indeed circumcised, marked with the sacred sign. Because again, nobody really knew exactly what's up with that. And when they saw that the Shekhinah had embraced the child, they knew that the curse would be over with him. And so he named the boy, Adam named the boy, in anticipation of what would transpire. Now try and imagine the disappointment that nothing happened from the time Noah was born until the flood began, which was 600 years later. But that's not exactly the case, and this is for our narrow-minded listeners. Redemption does not happen in an instant. Nothing is done for you. You have been given the tools and the instructions, and it's up to you to use those tools and follow those instructions. So what actually happened? Before Noah came, they had no idea what was going on. They had no tools, right? Here's the earth, go work it. How? With your hands, we'll see. They were not given any understanding of the land. They could have had it, but again, they were just busy with other things. Like, they could have tried and figure something out, but, some things seem more appealing right now, right? Noah taught them to fashion tools and to plow and to plant seeds properly and efficiently. They were using their hands before, and it says it right there in the verse. The verse again, and he named him Noah, saying, "This one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands from the ground, which the Lord has cursed. Umitzavon yadenu min adama." Literally, this is what it says. So this is literally, plainly, and simply. In fact, we see that when they got out of the ark as well, in 9:20, it says, "And Noah began to be a master of the soil, and he planted a vineyard." The Hebrew says, "Vayachel Noach, ish ha'adama, vayita karem." Right? Ish is a husband. Ha'adama, he was a husband to the ground. He was very attentive to the earth. He had that connection. He knew what was going on. And so God made a covenant with man because of Noah. Chapter 8, verse 20, "And Noah built an altar to the Lord, and he took of all the clean animals and all the clean fowl and brought up burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled the pleasant aroma. And the Lord said to himself, I will no longer curse the earth because of man. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth." In other words, okay, I see where their DNA is at. "And I will no longer smite all living things as I have done." Noah was the warning sign for the world. He was the sign that things could get better if people apply themselves correctly and cease following their own desires, which will lead you to certain death. At this point, the choice was very clear. Either change your ways or perish. It was a sign that God had had enough. Look, I'm going to send you someone. If you listen right now, it'll be okay. But if not, you guys are done. So we've discussed the world breaker. We're going to discuss it some more. But now let's talk about the world maker. "But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord." Why? This is verse 8. Well, because, verse 9, "These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God." Wow, okay, we like the guy. "Ele toldot Noach, Noach ish tzadik tamim haya bedorotav, et haElohim italech Noach." Who wouldn't want God to say that about them? This person walked with me. Now, this is quite rare, and we did discuss this a bit last year, and in case you missed the teaching last year, I actually just watched it before this teaching to know what to focus or not focus on. It was pretty entertaining nonetheless, so check it out. Anyway, only the truly righteous people have their names mentioned twice in a row in the Torah. All right, it happened with Abraham, Avraham, Yaakov, Moshe. Who else was it? Shmuel. Doesn't say Isaac because, as we discussed, when Isaac was upon the altar, his soul died, his heavenly soul went there. So, in other words, he was more in heaven than he was on earth. So, and that never happened during anyone's lifetime. So, Isaac was absolutely righteous. And again, this is Noah's company. Abraham, Jacob, Moses, Samuel. Noah was a righteous man. But within verses 8 and 9, the name Noah is mentioned actually 5 times. And the second being the switching of the letters, Noach, comfort, and chen, grace. Noach and chen. V'Noach matzah chen b'fnei Hashem. Noach and chen is the same letters, same word, just flipped. Now, I don't know why, but it could have been because within these verses, where it says his generations, it doesn't actually mention his generation. These are the generations of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, right? Because usually it says these are generations of Adam. Adam begot Set, who begot, and so on and so forth. But there was no begatting over here. So what are these generations? Could be Noach was 500 years old when God is speaking of him over here. and he begot Shem, Ham, and Yefet only at that time. Now, the reason it doesn't mention his direct descendants at that point, why, is because we are all the descendants of Noah, very specifically. Every person alive today, every bird and beast is alive because this man Noah, who kept himself pure and found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Noach ish tzaddik tamim. Noah was a righteous and perfect man. Now, as we know, Noah was the only man alive who did not engage in sexually immoral acts. The only guy. Okay? Premarital sex or any kind of spilling the seed or playing around with the birds and with the bees. Oh yeah, they literally did that. We know this because of his title, tzaddik. Because who's the only other individual in the Torah who receives this title, individual, I say? It was Joseph. Joseph was called a tzaddik, not for his dreams, not for his ability to decipher Pharaoh's dreams, not for his ability to rule, not for his incredible intellect. That is not why Joseph was called tzaddik. And you'll notice all these things above that I just mentioned, which do indeed make Joseph, it was part of his greatness, have nothing to do with the kind of man that he was, but rather with the gifts that God gave him. Remember, God gives us all gifts and talents. Take those away. What are you? What do you have? That's the true test. That's it. God could give anybody anything and take away, which is how we mentioned with Moses so much. Moses was the most humble man because he understood that what God gave him, he could have given to anybody else. So how did he handle that? Every moment was a gift. So Joseph, he used them well, the gifts that God gave him. But without his dreams, his insights, and his foresight, and his intellect, what do we have left? We have an 18-year-old kid who withstood sexual temptation of the highest order, not for a day, a week, or a month, but every single day for an entire year, from the moment he woke to the moment that he went to sleep. Potiphar's wife, she was after him, to say the least. She would switch her outfits 3 times a day. She was physically ill because of how bad she wanted him. She did everything in her power to try and get him. The kid, he went in there, he was 17 years old until he was 18. And when she finally got him alone and she grabbed him, he ran for his life. And as we now know, also for the life of the world. And that, my friends, is the only reason that Joseph was called righteous, tzaddik. Because if he would not have kept himself pure, he would not have been able to decipher the dreams. He would not have been able to have the ability to rule, and he would not have retained his incredible intellect. You see, it all depends on that. As a result, the entire world would have starved to death along with his brothers, the children of Israel. This is usually the part that most people get backwards. See, all the great men and women in the Torah have gotten to where they did, not because of what necessarily was given to them, but because of what they did without the gifts. How did Moses conduct himself before the Shekhinah completely fused with him? How did he live his life up until the age of 80? And every single one, look at Abraham. Look no further than Abraham. We're in Noah right now. We'll get to Abraham next week. Right now we got Noah. Look at this man. It's about the person. It's not about the superpowers. Now, I'm sure I quoted this line before. It's a great line. It's from one of the Marvel superhero things. It's from the first Spider-Man movie with the last guy. I know there have been so many. So the kid, he's a 15-year-old kid, Spider-Man. He abused the powers of the suit that Tony Stark, that Iron Man gave him. As a result, he endangered hundreds of people's lives because he wasn't ready. He's like, yeah, give me the power, Okay. So Tony Stark said, all right, he said, kid, give me the suit back. To which the kid replied, please don't take the suit away. I'm nothing without the suit. And here comes the line. Now, please pay attention to this. Everyone, we all need to remember this. And he says, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve to wear it. Okay. The suit is our gifts, is our powers, that which enhance or enable us to go beyond our basic capabilities. You dig, right? Okay. Now, Yosef HaTzadik held out for a year, Pretty impressive. By all and any means. Very, very impressive. Don't know any teenager that would be able to do that. Noah held out for 500 years when everyone in the world was into this funky stuff. Everyone. He was the only one. Methuselah was still alive, but again, Noah was the one that... He didn't even get married because he didn't want to bring kids. He's like, why am I bringing kids into this world? And that's when God said, hey, get a wife, have your kids, build the ark, I got you. Noah was called because of how he walked. He could have turned away just the same. What, because he was born and he had the mark on him? You know that Esav was supposed to be on a higher spiritual level than Moses and Jacob and David combined? Esav. Yeah, as in Jacob's twin brother. But he squandered it. Free will, right there. But he had the potential so no one could come and say, oh, you're choosing favorites. God chooses everyone. It's do you choose God? Noah was called because of how he walked. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. Okay, Noah walked with God. The man walked with God, for goodness sake. And what do we say about last week about the halichot, the walks? Don't call them halichot, but rather halachot. That's why he was perfect in his generations. And he was perfect before the flood, the generation before the flood, and after the flood. That's why the generations are plural. Those are the two generations. Proverbs 10:25 says, when the whirlwind passes, the wicked man is no more, but the righteous is the foundation of the world. Ka'avol sufa ve'ein rasha v'tzadik yesod olam. V'tzadik yesod olam, but the righteous foundation of the world, meaning the world eternal. What do we discuss, right? The righteous are the ones who receive the covenant. They don't become righteous because of the covenant. What's the covenant? Verse 18, God tells Noah based on his own actions. And I will set up my covenant with you, and you shall come up into the ark. You're the guy that I will set up the covenant. In the future, you shall come to the ark, you and your sons and your wife and the sons of your wives with you. Where have we read this before? That God established a covenant? Genesis 17, between God and Abraham. Verse 17:7. And I will establish my covenant between me and between you and between your seed after you throughout the generations as an everlasting covenant to be to you for a God and to your seed after you. As we discussed, Abraham earned this. This happened way later in his life. And God said to Abraham, and you shall keep my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout the generations. What is the covenant? This is a covenant, which you shall observe between me and between you and between your seed after you, that every male among you be circumcised. Wait, it's not that simple. Hold on. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be as the sign of a covenant between me and between you. Okay, so, excuse me, a little dry. Et briti tishmor, you shall keep my covenant. In other words, once you have the covenant, what does it mean? You got to keep it. That's having the covenant, but you shall keep the covenant, guard the covenant. Oh, so you mean just circumcising the boys in 8 days old and we're good, right? Is that keeping it though? No, it's not keeping it. How did Abraham earn his covenant? Because not only did he pass the 10 trials that God gave him, but Abraham kept the laws of the Torah before the Torah was even given. And he did this freely with the greatest desire. God's like, you don't have to do that. Everyone was like, are you kidding? This is my way to you. I'm clinging. He was a clingy guy to God. It's a good thing. He was a Klingon. Okay. Anyway, would he have been any less righteous had he not? In other words, had he not followed the Torah laws before they were actually given? He figured this out on his own. No, he would not have been less righteous. A righteous person does the Torah because it's the Torah, because they're a righteous person. But a righteous person by default also keeps the Torah. were the patriarchs and matriarchs not all tzaddikim? Was Moses, Aaron, Miriam, Joshua, David, and Samuel? They were all tzaddikim. Joseph, however, was the one who inhabited the actual Sephirah in the right time. It had to move down. Joseph was the next one in line, which is how we made the connection to Noah. God made a covenant with Noah, and circumcision had nothing to do with it. But it all points to where the mark is placed, to where the sign that Noah and Moses were born with. Yes, Moses was also born circumcised, and it should tell you something. And they both entered an ark, and they both saved the world from destruction. And in both cases, the judgment of the world and Egypt came from the side of mercy by water. In fact, it even hints to Moses in Genesis 6:3. And the Lord said, "Let my spirit not quarrel forever concerning man, because he is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years." Vayomer Hashem, lo yadon ruchi ba'adam le'olam, beshagam hu basar, v'ayu yamav 120 shana. What is beshagam? I don't know. But what I do know is that it's the same numerical value of Moshe. Plug in his name to the verse, and what do you get? Let my spirit not quarrel forever, because Moses is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. Love it. And it was. They were. So, what is this yesod? What is this foundation? Well, it's not just a mark, but where is it? Here we go. Right? Yesod is the foundation, but also we carry around the yesod with us, the mark. But it's also what it represents, because it is through yesod that we make worlds, right? It's also our reproductive organ. And it is through yesod that we break worlds, because if we put this reproductive organ wherever we feel like it, worlds are going to get destroyed, just as they have been and just as they will be again. Now, how could this be? Masechet Sanhedrin, chapter 4, says, שכל המאבד נפש אחת מישראל מעלה עליו הכתוב כאילו איבד עולם מלא. וכל המקיים נפש אחת מישראל מעלה עליו הכתוב כאילו קיים עולם מלא. Anyone who destroys one soul from the Jewish people, i.e. kills one Jew, the verse ascribes him blame as if he destroyed an entire world. And anyone who sustains one soul from the Jewish, just one from the Jewish people, it is as if he sustained an entire world. This, my friends, is to be taken literally. You see, in order for the nation of Israel to be born, first, Moses had to be born. Before him, Jacob, or Levi rather, Jacob, Isaac, and of course Abraham. This was all made possible through Noach, keeping the covenant, which is why God made a covenant with him. And this is where it gets tricky and yet very simple when it comes to Israel and to the rest of the world. Israel is the only nation in the world that who get judged collectively. That's it. It seems unfair, but this is how we were made. Why? Because we're actually one with God. And so when even one of us fall, we all fall. But then equally so, when one of us rises, we have the ability to lift up our entire people, which is why sometimes you only need one, Tzaddik Yesod Olam. We are spiritually speaking tied together here. And only when we are together do we proceed to tie ourselves together with God. I need you to focus now. Follow me. Noah entered the ark when he was 600 years old. And why 600? Because that's when the ark was ready to receive him. 600 is also the numerical value of kesher, knot, as in to be tied together. 600 is also the numerical value of sheker, as we discussed last week, a lie. A lie begets a lie. All the lies are tied together. You make a choice right here. Truth or lies. He chose truth. We can tie ourselves with the truth or with the lies. It's up to us. The ark represents Malchut, kingdom, the feminine aspect, while Noah represents Yesod, which is masculine, right? And only once he was ready, the masculine and the feminine became fused and tied together. The masculine entered the feminine. Chapter 7:1. And the Lord said to Noah, come into the ark. Why come? Aveomer Hashem leNoach, bo ata, you come right now. You come. Why did he say come and not go into the ark? Because God was already there. You and all your household. For it is you that I've seen as a righteous man before me in this generation. So again, didn't he see him as a righteous man 100 years ago? Yeah, it says so. So what's the difference? Now it is you and all your household. Look how Noah perfected himself. Of all the clean animals you should take of yourself 7 pairs, a male and its mate, and of all the animals that are not clean, 2, a male and its mate. Also of the fowl of the heavens, 7 pairs, male and female. Here it is, to keep seed alive on the face of the earth. And that's the biggest hint right here. Noah is the one who kept seed alive and pure, and that's why he was chosen to keep the seed of the world alive. Noah possessed the seed, and Noah was the seed. You get it? And how do we know it was the right time? And I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark. As we discussed, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. God tells him this in the future. This is going to happen. In other words, son, you got some work to do. Go get ready because this is going to happen. And what happens when the covenant enters the ark? It becomes the ark of the covenant. Foreshadowing. And where is this ark of the covenant? Who established the ark of the covenant? It was Moses, between God and the children of Israel. I mean, this is all about Israel, in case you missed it. How many days did it rain? For another 7 days I will make it rain upon the earth for 40 days and for 40 nights. Cleansing the earth, yes, for 40 days and 40 nights. And how many days did Moses pray for the cleansing and forgiveness of the children of Israel? 40 days. We learned this. Exodus 32:14, the Lord then reconsidered the evil he had said he would do to his people. Listen to this word, Vayinachem Hashem al hara'ah shel diber la'asot le'amo. This is Exodus, right? After golden calf. To be compared to Genesis 6:6, Vayinachem Hashem ki asa et ha'adam ba'aretz vayityatzeva libo. And the Lord regretted that he had made man upon the earth, and he became grieved in his heart. This is all because of Moses. Moses could do what Noah could not do. Here's what our sages say. Come and behold. What is the difference between Moses and other people? When the Holy One, blessed be he, said to Moses in Exodus 32:10, now leave me alone, and my anger will be kindled against them, so that I will annihilate them, and I will make you into a great nation. Vata hanicha li v'echa rapi bahem v'achlam, annihilate them. V'aseh otcha legoy gadol. Moses immediately asked, shall I abandon Israel, forget their punishment, and not plead for them for mercy? The world shall now say that I have killed Israel, and have not done the same, that Noah had done. What did he mean by this, doing the same that Noah did? Noah did not plead for mercy for the world. And they all perished because God told him that he and his kids would be safe in the ark. Just you and your offspring, and whatever animals I tell you to take. That's it. Everybody else is gone. And it is because Noah did not plead for the world that the flood waters were named after him. Noah's flood, right? The flood of Noah. How could this be? You get a title, the law of Moses, okay? Isaiah confirms this in 54:9. For this is to me as the waters of Noah. As I swore that the waters of Noah shall never again pass over the earth, so I have sworn neither to be wroth with you nor to rebuke you. Okay, Moses said, now all the people will say that I have killed Israel because God told me that he would make a great nation of me. It would be better for me to die than have Israel destroyed. Do you see this? So what did he do? Verse 11. Moses pleaded before the Lord and his God and said, why, O Lord, should your anger be kindled against your people whom you have brought up from the land of Egypt with great power and with a strong hand? This is a funny verse, right? Because Rabbi Yitzchak asked, why did Moses ask why? It's pretty obvious why. We all know why. They sinned with the golden calf. Why do you want to do it? He knew why. Okay, it was idolatry right after. So again, everybody knows this. Now, what is this like? This is like a mother trying to protect her son from the wrath of her father, of his father. She minimizes the misdeeds of the son to the father, but maximizes them to the son. It's like, whoa, 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 hey, he's just a stupid kid. He doesn't know nothing, right? But then she turns to the son and goes, oh, you're not off the hook yet. I'm gonna kill you, right? And then when the father goes away, she smacks the son and she lets him have it because it's better to take that beating than complete annihilation, right? Okay. Which is why Moses let them have it afterwards. He stood up to God and says, hey, why? Come on, you brought him up, you brought him out. They're dumb. Don't worry. They're just there. And then he let them have it because we see what happens, right? You have sinned greatly before the Lord, he said. What's wrong with you? And again, Moses did not relent, not before God anyway. He told God to blot him out of his book if God blots out Israel. He put his entire existence on the line for them. And he wasn't bluffing either, knowing full well that they were guilty. They were guilty. It wasn't even let me go to court with them. It's like, yeah, I know what they did. Yeah, they absolutely deserve to be blotted out, right? But take me if you're taking them. And that's when we get 32:14, right? The Lord then reconsidered the evil that he would do to his people. Vaynachem. Now there's that word again. Whose name is right in the middle of that word? Vaynachem. He regretted. Noach. Vaynach. Noachem. Comfort, rest. But Noah did not act as Moses did. Now we'll see. It's not entirely his fault either, okay? Our sages continue. Whenever there is judgment upon the world, the Holy Spirit says, alas, there is no one like Moses. Isaiah 63:11. And he remembered the days of old, the days of Moses. Where is he? Where's Moses? Who drew them up from the sea like a shepherd his flock. Where is he who placed within them his Holy Spirit? God just said that Moses is the one who drew them up from the sea. That it was Moses who was responsible for placing the Holy Spirit within them. Wow. In other words, the Shekhinah dwelt with them because Moses offered his life to save Israel. Rabbi Yehuda said that although Noah was righteous, let's not take anything away from Noah, okay? God calls him righteous. But he could still not save the world based on his own merit. But now you got to ask, were Israel saved based on Moses' merit alone? Exodus 32:13, right when this is all going down. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your very self, and to whom you said, I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens. And all this land which I said that I will give to your seed, they shall keep it as their possession forever. And the Lord then reconsidered the evil that he said that he would do to his people. Moses depended on the merit of the patriarchs. But during Noah's time, there were no patriarchs. Lord, please remember the promises that you gave to, well, nobody, because I'm the first one you're giving the covenant with, so okay. You understand the difference? Like, don't hold anything against him. He was the only one. And it was he and his seed alone who needed to be saved. So the patriarchs could exist. So let's just ask one more question, okay, before we wrap up. This question is a question that Rabbi Yossi asked Rabbi Shimon. Why did God destroy all the animals and the birds and all the other creatures? What sin have they committed? Well, the answer is actually in Genesis 6:12. And God saw the earth, and behold, it had become corrupted, for all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. All flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. And the explanation is that the wicked of the world caused all the species of the earth to become corrupt. Yeah, that's right. Meaning they caused all the creatures to pervert their ways as they themselves had done. Splicing and whatnots. So as you can imagine, every living thing was defiled. How do we know? Because for all flesh had corrupted its ways on the earth. Wow. Nothing was as creation was, or as God had created it. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to them, as you seek to destroy my work of creation, I shall fully grant you your wish. For another 7 days I will make it rain upon the earth for 40 days and for 40 nights, and I will blot out all beings that I have made off the face of the earth. I shall bring the world back to water, as it was in the beginning. And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the water, and let there be a separation between water and water, upper water and lower water. At first the water, it was just one body, and God separated them, and they were not happy about that. But now, in the 600 years of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on this day, all the springs of the great deep were split, and the windows of the heavens opened up. What happened? God just reunited the waters back to Maseh Bereshit, right? To undo what was done. He had to undo what he did in order to undo what we did. Now, there's a certain amount of holy versus unholy in the world. There's a balance of light and dark. During the times of Noah, the world was completely covered in darkness, and the only point of light was Noah himself. And yet, even that's enough to save the world. Again, what is the world? Who was the world created for? We know that the world was created for Israel, right? So sometimes it takes only one guy, tzaddik, to continue it. Now, something else I want you to understand. We see this because we are here. You think that this is resting on Malchut? It is not. This is the source. This is the foundation. Otherwise, this would be the foundation. But this is a foundation. And this right here is trying to hang on to this. You understand? And when we misbehave, this connection is severed. And when this connection is severed, oy vavoy lanu. All right? You understand? This malchut is suspended. So, one man saves the world, even in the darkest of rooms, right? A single candle can pierce through the black. A single ray of light is more than enough to light the way, even just one step. When a person is so far away from God, in practical terms, this means that their assigned duties, functions, or purpose in this world, right, that they're not doing what they have to do. Their soul has barely anything to do with their body. We know that there's 3 levels right now in this world, in this existence. We have the ruach, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. The nefesh is the lifeblood of our body. And then there's the guf, the physical, inanimate, if you will, meat bag, right? So we have the nefesh, which sort of animates it. And then we have the ruach, the spirit. And we have the neshama, which is up there. Now, when a person does not do what they're supposed to do, the neshama has nothing to do with the body, as you can see, right? The more you do impure things, the more your holiness will flee from you. This is by default. It makes perfect sense. It flees as much as possible, right? But when a person is pious, righteous, and pure, when they follow the instructions that they have been given, then the soul is actively assisting the body. All of a sudden, I'm getting divine help from my own soul in all its earthly functions, because the purpose of those functions are spiritual in nature, just like the Shekhinah. The reason the flood was necessary, it was actually to save the neshamot. This is why it was called mercy. If the body does not do what it is supposed to do, then guess what? The body is soulless. And so the entire earth was filled with the walking dead, kind of like today, almost. That's why the flood came to destroy all flesh, it says, because the flesh in itself is not divine, basic human needs and whatnot. Also, it decays and it dies, it's death. The flesh itself can be elevated, but only through the help of the soul. And how does the soul help you? You follow the Torah, the mitzvot, right? In this case, you take care of the yesod. But if there's no soul, then the flesh is pointless. Then why is the Shekhinah over here on the earth? And the more death covers the earth, the less the Shekhinah has room to dwell. And so all the Shekhinah in the world at that point was concentrated in Noah. Remember, all the Shekhinah at first was concentrated in Adam. He possessed godly light. He was a being of light. All the angels, all the heavenly hosts worshipped Adam because, he's a copy of our Creator, right? God made him in his likeness and his image. Anyway, that concentration was then of that light was then passed to Noah. How so? Through the covenant. You understand? But still, even though you are given this covenant, you have to live it out. And so all the Shekhinah in the world was concentrated in Noah because he was righteous, because he kept the covenant. And all those who did not were destroyed. And so today, keep to the covenant. Sexual immorality has no place in God's kingdom. No one will tell you it's okay because it's in black and white. You can't get around this. Sorry, but not sorry. The world is covered in perpetual darkness because of the world's deeds and because of the Jewish people's deeds. Jews around the world are not keeping the covenant. We're assimilating through sexually immoral acts. All the excuses in the end, they won't help. Now is the quiet before the storm, before it begins to rain, before the waters of the deep open up and the storm, she is coming. Do you know that the first temple was destroyed for the same reason that the world was destroyed? Sexual immoral acts, the spilling of blood, we already discussed what that is. The same reason that the world was destroyed. Now we know that the world was created for Israel, right? You know that the temple was also built so it would be destroyed eventually as an atonement for the sin of Israel. Since then, the Ark of the Covenant has disappeared. The Ark of the Covenant is the only thing that can save you now. We must enter into the Ark by keeping it. We're so close. Where Isaiah 60 verse 2 reads, "For behold, darkness shall cover the earth." This is in the end of days. Darkness shall cover the earth, and a gross darkness the kingdoms. But then the Lord shall shine a light upon you, and his glory shall appear to you. And it ends with verse 21, "And your people, listen up, all of them righteous. Ve'amcha kulam tzadikim le'olam," forever. One way or another, all of Israel are going to remain because they entered the Ark of the Covenant. Now the question is though, are all Israel righteous, or are all the righteous Israel? As the last generation before the final cleansing, ask yourself, are you a world maker or are you a world breaker? Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom.